You can't be serious, man.
Because whether you like it or not, Mick, you might get your nose out of joint. The person I'm about to introduce is probably the voice of football. If you think about it, he is the chief football writer for the largest selling newspaper in the country. He's on Foxtel television on a program called 360, and he's on the radio, and he pontificates about football, and whether you like it or not, he's probably the voice of football.
Why wouldn't I like that?
Oh, because you get because he took over from you and you're jealous.
I did exactly the same thing.
Eh?
I did exactly the same thing.
Anyhow.
So he's uninteresting like you. He hasn't got a life except football.
And I like that, Don.
And
uninteresting is the right word.
Took over the role of naming the best 50 players.
What's his name?
His name is Mark Robinson, and he's here with us today.
He looks
Welcome,
like a
Mark.
He looks
Hello,
like
everyone.
a clone for you, Johnny. He's got the shorts on, and it's bloody middle of winter.
Don,
And all he's got
how
is
many
shirt
times
on.
do I tell you this is a audio thing, not a visual medium? No
Well,
one
I'm
gives
trying to
a fuck
describe
what
his
Mark is wearing.
dress. Oh, his dress. He's a clone
He's
for
the
you.
house model for the Brotherhood of St Lawrence, and he's in here today with their blessing. Now, Mark,
Yes, Sam.
do you...
Sorry.
Go ahead.
No, but now, Mark.
You,
No, that was deliberate.
yes, buddy.
I asked you to come on this program
Yeah.
6 weeks ago.
You did.
And you said no.
Yep.
Because you thought that this man opposite me, John Salmon Newman, might trash you.
No, I actually said to you, we'll end up having an argument,
Yeah.
and I don't think it'll be good for me, and I don't know if it'd be great for the program.
And so, what changed your mind?
On Tuesday, what's today? Today's Tuesday.
Yeah.
Last week, I got a call from Kate Jezelenko.
Yes.
Yes.
And she told me that she called you or texted you, Mick, and she called and texted Sam, and so I spoke to Kate. And
This
she,
was Jez's daughter?
about the comments.
He's Jez's daughter?
Yep. And she
Going
said,
out
ring
with,
Sam, ring Sam. I said, oh, no worries, I haven't spoken to Sam for a couple of years. So I rang him up, and then we spoke about
That's
Jezza
a lie,
and the Mark.
incidentally, Mark. I spoke to you when Polly Farmer died. On air.
Yeah, that was about Polly, but I was talking about having sort of a personal conversation.
I see.
And myself and Sam had a personal conversation for 45 minutes, and we spoke about exactly what we spoke about, Mick, 6 weeks ago. And he said, I said, okay, no worries, I'll come in.
So what did he say that changed your mind?
Well, we're not going to endeavour to have
No,
and not going to bring me in and then trash me, invite me onto a podcast
that's exactly- I'll
and trash
tell
me.
you.
And I said, well,
I've
that's a
had-
pretty good premise to come in. So I thought,
I've had
okay.
plenty of, not plenty, I've had a number of disagreements and words with Mark Robinson over the years, but that's what I keep saying. Just because you have a disagreement with someone or don't like what they say about you doesn't mean to say you can't rise above it and have a sensible conversation about things you
No,
want to have
I
people
agree
who
with
are in
that.
the same industry
I
as
agree
you.
with that, but Rob, something you said to Robbo changed his mind.
Yes, I said we're not bringing you. We don't ask people to come in here deliberately so we can trash them. How insulting is that to ask someone to come in to be
Well,
vilified?
you did that with Caroline Wilson.
Because she was a hypocrite. Because she was
Careful.
I know, I'm trying to be very careful. She was a hypocrite. She accused me of what she actually does herself.
Okay, well, anyway, we'll move it.
We had an adult conversation.
Listen on.
And from that,
And it started off about Alex Jezelenko
Yes, it did.
being
Yep.
told by cane corns, which we've just discussed that. And what was your opinion about that, Mark? What did you think it was fair comment to say that, or do you think we should leave icons alone?
no, I think we should leave icons alone. Jez has earned the right, like a lot of people in life. I think Jez has earned the right just to grow old gracefully and just think, well, you know what, this was my life. I played my footy.
No, but
people
Mark,
have identified me. But I'm not trying to get it. I'm not one to try and give the likes of Kane Corns. I don't mind Kane Corns,
No,
but
no,
I'm not the
none
likes
of
of
us
giving
do.
him publicity for outlandish comments.
No.
So the story didn't go in the Herald Sun eventually.
So that was your choice. You chose not to write
Well,
about that.
you spoke to Kate on. Oh, well, you got the messages.
Yeah,
She was
yeah.
quite a. She was
was angry.
she was angry, and I thought, okay, it's not about Kane Corns. It's more about Jezza. I thought, but it was decided by the powers that be.
I see. So your paper deliberately suppressed the story because you didn't want to trash an icon.
Is that right?
That's
There's a bit
that's
of there's
extraordinary.
there's some other there's some other
Well,
elements.
give us some, please, Mark.
Well, yeah, you've got me in a spot here.
Well,
There's other elements to it. I mean, there's different media companies
I
around
see.
this
So
town.
I see. So you didn't want to. I'm not saying you, but
Yeah.
the professional jealousy or rivalry between the Herald Sun and Channel 9, who are owned by.
It's not jealousy. It's more rivalry.
Yes,
Yeah,
well,
it's
that's-
more rivalry.
I did qualify that.
Yeah.
I said jealousy or rivalry. You didn't want to give a opposition person or an opposition channel or radio station or a news organisation a free kick.
If it's worthwhile, there's no doubt you've got to report the news. But for a line of having a crack at Alex Jesselingo's mark, it was decided, well, there's bigger fish to fry.
Yeah, I don't agree with you. But had I been sitting in your chair, I wouldn't have taken that view. I would have thought Jezza and Kane Corns, one huge name and the other a name that's prominent in the media. To me, that was the story.
I tried, Mick.
Okay,
I
so
tried.
yeah, all right.
I wrote the story.
Now, have you met Donald?
Never met Don in my
Never met.
life.
And
But
Don-
I can honestly say, having listened to this podcast, and I'm not bullshitting here, he's become
Can't
quite
use that language here. It's very fruity.
You're fruity.
fruity.
You're tutti fruity.
He's
Keep going.
an
An enigma.
he is. He's an iconic player. He was an iconic commentator, and now in this third life, publicly, he's becoming a bit of a very much a cold hero.
Now,
very much a cold hero.
Can I ask
there's
you
no
an
doubt.
insight?
I actually said to Sam last Monday, give Don Scott more opportunity to speak.
Jeez, we're glad you said that.
Right?
Wow.
That was, and you'd already done the podcast. And then when I listened to the podcast, Sam introduced the show by saying, "I've been inundated with people saying,
Oh,
give,"
so one
and I
person-
hadn't even listened to it yet.
What?
So it was only one person
Oh,
pushing
Don,
that.
I made it up. It wasn't even one person.
I didn't
made
even
it up
know he said it. I
to
didn't
try
even
and
know
get
he
you
said it.
involved, Don. You asked 12
Can I
questions
ask
in a
him
row to
Can
Patrick
I ask him a
Dangerfield.
sensible question?
Of course.
Yeah.
Because no one will answer this. Who's responsible for trying to get football back on the stage? Is it the AFL? Is it the television? Or is it the players? I know the players haven't, but I'll get...
No, the players would be third in that by
So what
Some
is
of
it?
these things.
Bullshit, I don't agree with that.
the net. Okay, sorry.
Sorry,
you
mate.
say-
I just asked a question over here.
That was his opinion, Mick.
Yeah.
I know that,
incidentally.
but I would have thought I would have the players at one.
No,
No.
but they got no decision. They got no say in it.
They want to play.
Yeah, no, I know they want to play, but they got no say in it. It
I
is the
agree with
network.
Mark Robinson.
It's the networks and the AFL.
Don't give him a kiss. then.
Excuse
Mate,
me,
I-
you
I-
And why are
two,
you
will
calling me Mark Robinson for? Because every time you've mentioned me in the last 8 years in front of Meg, it's Robbo. It's what you
I
always
never
say.
call people
that
by
your
their nicknames.
impersonation?
No, no, no,
McAvoy.
but you put an inflection on. You go, Robbo.
Well,
Have you noticed that?
You do.
What do you think?
No,
I'm
it's
being
all-
sarcastic.
Yeah,
yes.
absolutely.
Do you want me to start on you? I'm trying to have a civil.
So am I. I'm just telling you how.
Well, Mark Robinson.
Yeah, thank you.
I agree with you, Mark Robinson.
Can you remember that, Mick? Robbo.
The AFL
Yep.
and the television stations and whoever else, the players come a distant third as to when this will start.
Yeah, that's not. Yeah, that's the
What was your
question
No,
from
no, hang
Don.
on. I want to get in. Who's driving it? Is it the AFL or is it the
Oh, the
television?
AFL and the networks are
What,
absolutely
both
driving it.
The two of them equally.
Yes, it's a fiscal
The
thing.
networks
Donald.
need the money, and the AFL needs the network money. 'Cause
Fiscal.
It's what is it? $400 million a year. They'll probably pick up if they get the games going again, which they will. It looks like $200 million will go from the networks to the AFL. The AFL just took out a $600 million loan, so they need the money. Of course, the players want to play, Mick. Of course, they want to play. But the networks and the AFL.
I'll tell you who's driving it. If the players decided they weren't prepared to take the health risk, they're the ones who are driving it.
If they decided that, yeah. No,
Or
I agree with that. I agree with that.
Yes, we just had the Players Association president on, and he said that's not the case.
What did the invisible man say?
Mark,
Yes, Sam.
Robbo. Before we forget what you just said,
Yep.
you said you wrote the story about cane corns, and the paper elected not to print it. Is that correct? So you were edited, or you were? Is that correct or
A
not?
decision was made. I mean, that's just what happens sometimes. Doesn't happen often.
So that's my next question. Things that you write about players or clubs or the competition or the AFL or the television network or anything, do they sometimes vet what you say and say, no, we won't, you're not your own man?
No. The answer to that is no.
Except this time.
Yeah, there's just a little bit of politicking
You sure you were edited? Are you sure that they said to you, we don't want this story in the paper?
No, there's just there's some politics going on, Mick, and as you know, when you're a chief football writer, some things happen above your head from a business plan level, and you say, okay.
Well, the Mark Robinson I know would have said, no, this is a genuine...
Of course I did.
Yeah.
Of course I did.
And
I don't want to be sitting here. I'm not fighting with my company. My company's been enormous to me. They give me enormous support as they gave you, and they don't tell me what to write. They don't ever say you're not writing that.
Well,
right?
You're implying that.
And in this situation,
they did.
The decision was made that we're not going to go down that track. I said, "This is Jezza. This is Alex Jesselenko." But
yes,
no.
but because it is, we won't labour this too much more, but because it is Jezza and it is an iconic mark, and Kane's probably saying, well, he didn't jump more than 3 feet off the ground, and someone else who took a mark jumped 5 feet, which is irrelevant. It's the whole package about the grand final, the time, the call of Mike Williamson's. I would have thought that's a huge story just in its controversy, and you're saying it's a publicity stunt, eh? Or is that what the paper was saying?
Yeah, it is a bit of a publicity
And you weren't going to
stunt.
give him the publicity?
Kane's a pretty outspoken media commentator, and he says something quite challenging or disruptive or, critical most days. Comes a time where you think, do we just continue to write what this man says? We don't. He's not employed by us. Do we just give?
No, that's more the point.
Yeah.
isn't it?
Do we just keep giving this guy an opinion every day?
Sorry, Don. I know you want to ask him a question, but before we leave,
want to hear from you, Don. Don't worry about that. And so does Mark.
What about this? Is general now.
Yep.
Kane Corns and an issue. Now, the Tex Walker issue, that wasn't. No one sat on that. They were happy to run that. That Corns and Walker were having a blue.
I think there's been a change of policy.
Has there?
Yeah, I think so.
Gee.
Not across it. Well, this is a big industry. We all know this. We've all worked in the media for a long, long time. And it's getting tighter and tighter. We're going through this coronavirus. Nine and Fairfax have teamed up. Herald Sun, really, we're with Foxtel. We own Fox. We're a big part of, we're a major part of Fox Sports. And I'm not battle lines have been drawn, but there's a clear line now. Just ask how many times does Channel 9 and Fairfax write about Fox Footy or speak about what I said or what prominent people in Fox Footy say. Just think about what their coverage is of News Corp. I'd say it's very minimal to nothing.
So we're not very magnanimous with our opposition.
Never have been, even in mixed time. Never have been, I reckon.
We used to have that problem on the Footy Show. I used to mention Sever. They said don't mention. I said
mention them. You used to kick the living crap out of them.
No, that's right. That's right. As a bit of parody or satire, and they used to just get very nervous about even mentioning opposition. I said, don't tell me we're that small we can't speak about people who are on the other side of town without people switching off the television and going and watching. It just seems to me to be so childish.
But see, you're comfortable in your own skin, and you're comfortable in your own ability, and what you were the top of the tree at that stage. And I thought I've deleted this stage if you like, but you were the top of top of the tree, Sam.
Fair enough, mate.
And your
1980,
and your confidence within yourself was supreme.
So that's a good question. So are you confident in what you do that people who read your paper and see you out in the street will not belt you or chastise you, or doesn't it worry you?
No, you have to have a level of confidence, and it's interesting. We've got Mick sitting here, and I got there in '92, in January '92, August '92. Mick started in January '93. So Mick left 10 to 11?
2011, yeah.
2011. So we worked together, and I saw how Mick put up with stuff. Oh, I mean, seriously, we remember that night we were in that bar in East Melbourne, and these.
You were going to fight 35 blokes, yeah?
Well, I didn't like the way they were talking to you, and I couldn't believe the way they were talking in the language that they were using.
So let's just round it up so people. So you two were in a bar having a chat.
I think was
and
that
you'd had
with
a,
Eamon
That was
or Tony?
with Eamon.
Yeah. My son Eamon.
Yeah.
Yeah.
A couple of
Eamon, and I was
jars
with
each,
my
had you?
no, I was with my cousin Mick, and we would either going to the footy, going to the footy. I think I can't remember. And Mick walked in, and these blokes just started abusing you personally.
What are you laughing at?
welcome to the club, Mick. What did they say exactly?
The fruitiest of fruity language, Don.
Well, why? Because he'd said something
No,
bad about.
Mick
Because
had
of
not
who I
said
was,
anything.
that's all.
Who he
Well,
was.
who are you?
He
No,
was
it was
chief
just because I
football
was chief
writer.
foot writer of the
That's
Herald.
right, that's
and I
what-
was on Fox Footy. And
That's right.
He was
So-
the number one man in town in our field.
Not as big as you,
No,
but,
but Mick, why would someone? And I'm asking you this too, Mark. Why would someone? Because you're the chief football writer.
but they don't like what you say or write, which
That's
you
what
know
I'm
well.
asking you.
But to Robbie, I remember I said to you, you were still part of your learning process then, and you were getting angry, right?
Yeah, I did get
You went
angry.
about these dickheads and blah blah blah. And I said, just cool it, mate. Don't worry about them. Ignore
Turn
them.
the other cheek.
And they
I
went.
couldn't. I
and
just
they
had
went
to
a
go
bit
up to
further,
him.
and he said he was going to take on 15
Well,
blokes.
there you
Well,
are. So he
you
was-
wouldn't have backed him up.
No.
You would have run for.
Oh, Don's here. Oh, you just arrived, Don, have you?
I'm just trying to put all this together. It's so incestuous. You three.
It's not
talking-
incestuous,
Incestuous
Don.
is
the
It's
wrong
just
word,
It's just
Don.
it's
You're talking
everywhere.
about Fairfax and this and
No,
that.
no,
Who
it's-
cares?
Well,
He was-
he's here because he's part of the media.
Can I ask you a question, Mark?
Yes,
The
Don.
reporting
Asking about
is-
Murray Bridge.
Yeah,
you're
the
a
Paris
bloody-
or-
I hope your bloody horse.
Are
runs
you two
last.
friends?
Oh, I was just going to say.
Paris or back. Get on to Paris.
Hey,
the reporting
you
on-
go at each other a lot.
Yeah, I know.
Mick and Don, you go at each other. It comes across pretty heavily on the podcast when you
That's
listen.
right.
So, what do you think we should refrain from it?
No.
Well,
Just
try and be
keep
compassionate.
going.
Shut up! Can I ask him a question?
See, I
Thank
rest
you.
my case.
Thank you. The
Yes,
reporting on football's changed. I
Yep.
think for the better, because I'm starting to learn about players, personalities since this coronavirus. Especially on Channel 7, they're going out and doing a few personality pieces. Why doesn't the paper, you people, do the same to engage the general public more?
I think we do, to be honest, and I'm not saying that you don't. There's no doubt since the coronavirus started, and I was talking to Chris Fagan about this yesterday. I'm not name dropping, but in today's paper, I rang phone. Well, you can't name drop if you're in footy because you talk to these people, don't you?
Did.
Anyway, I was talking to an AFL coach yesterday, and he said, "What have you, you know, how are you? What have you learnt?" I said, "I learnt that players without the controls of the football club are allowing their personalities to come through. Just they're people, and when they're in the club confines, they're very careful about what they say. They stick to, you know, looking forward to next week. I know that's a bit of a cliche, but it's just straight down the line, and out of the controls of the club, the players are just opening up. They're just being normal people.
So if you want an interview with the player, have you got to go to the club first and get permission and then go to the player, or
Not
can you
all
go
the time.
directly to the player?
No, the club's like going through the club. For example,
Protocol, Don.
I interviewed a GWS player recently. I won't say his name,
Why
but
not?
I know
Why
it
not?
because he'll say I'm name dropping. But I know Heath-Shaw's. Heath-Shaw's a 34-year-old man. He's not a kid.
Yeah.
So I just rang Heath. I said, "Hey, Heath, I got this idea. 12 stations of isolation. Can you go through the different levels of sex and drinking and meditation and ADHD?" And he goes, "Yeah, great idea." So it went in the paper, and the club rang me and said, "Great story, but can you ring us and tell us you're doing it?" Because, and they had a good point, we would have spoken to the Telegraph in Sydney and said, "Oh, this story's coming. Do you guys want to run it?" But the club didn't know that the Telegraph would know that story's on
Wouldn't
a
the
news
Telegraph
list.
pick it up
Yeah,
from
it's
what
from a
you-
news
you-
list.
you said?
And they didn't. They didn't
But
do that.
okay, now Heath Shaw's 34. He's an old
he's an-
player, experienced. But what about the younger guys coming in that we want to know
No,
about?
we cannot ring them directly. But clubs are reluctant to give big sit down interviews to young players. Hey, you've only played 12 games, 15 games. Just play your footy.
Are you being usurped by the AFL media?
Yes, great point. Now, this is a discussion. That's a great point. The clubs are being asked to...
Write that down. What did you say then?
Will you
the
shut
AFL.
up?
I'm going to take a note of that.
Geez, you always want to get your voice in.
He said that's a great point. I wanted to make sure I
Geez,
wrote it down
you've
so I can
pinched it
reflect
again,
on
you've
it.
pinched it again. You can't help yourself. You've got to be centre of attention.
The
Go on.
AFL's asking clubs to take staff cuts. Some of them are like footy department, 45 to 50. The word is they want it down to about 25. So people are going to get sacked, lose their jobs, make job cuts. They're cutting coaches. They're going to cut the TPP, which is the players' salaries are going to get chopped down. And I think some clubs, not anymore, but we're asking a couple of weeks ago, well, what are you going to do, the AFL? You've got a staff bill of $113 million. Our salary cap bill is 13.7. Our football department staff's 9.7. 12 AFL executives are getting paid an average of $10.7 million. 12?
Not an average, an aggregate.
Yeah.
An average of 10.
An average?
No, not
sorry.
No,
Sorry.
aggregate.
Total, sorry.
Totally.
Be good average. Good job. Sorry, thanks, Mick.
Mackerel.
So the clubs are quite rightly, now the clubs are telling me that, cuts are coming, and you mentioned AFL media. The AFL media is a huge arm of the AFL. I wouldn't be surprised if there's going to be some major changes to that.
Yeah, but they're I said usurping, pinching stories.
Of course they do. Because they get access. It really pisses me off. They get access. They get assigned to clubs, the journos, and they get access to these players.
So what's
Like
the
in the
biggest-
last
what's
week, I'll tell you who I've asked for in the last week for interviews. Okay. Lance Franklin twice, 2 weeks in a row, no. Sean Burgoyne, no. Simon Goodwin, no. Nathan Fife, no. That happened Thursday, Friday. And on Saturday, I rang up a guy called Anthony van der Weyden, who's the manager of Marlon Pickett, and he told me about Marlon Pickett, who's coming back to Melbourne today. And I'll be honest, I sent a message to Sydney. I said, footy's been great. I said, Lance Franklin's been great to football, unbelievable. But football's been great to Lance Franklin. And the media and the public, we need support and we need content right now. Can I have Lance for 15 minutes on the telephone? No, he doesn't want to do it. And that annoys me. I don't know what you guys think, but I think sometimes, and we're going through this pandemic, help us all. 15 minutes on the telephone, for Christ's sake.
Yeah, no, he should do it.
Yeah, but hang on. I asked you about AFL media.
Yeah.
Where is it going? Yeah. It's in competition to you as paper. It's releasing stories. What's the bigger idea or what's the bigger vision of AFL media in the landscape?
I don't know. This is only my personal opinion. I don't think AFL media will survive. They won't
You don't
survive.
think it'll survive?
No.
Why?
Just don't think it will. Cuts have to be made to the AFL.
It's a massive
And there's a school
website,
of thought.
though.
I tell you what, there's a school of thought, Mick. There's a school of thought that the major media partners of the AFL are who? All the radio stations who cover it, News Corp for sure, and they've got a media arm which is undercutting their major media partners who pay hundreds of millions of dollars. And I don't know if anyone follows what's going on with AFL media. They just break news through their AFL media arm.
Isn't it the busiest website in football?
It might be, but it's undercutting their major media partners.
But it's commercial too, isn't it, for them?
Oh, I think I wouldn't say commercial. I mean, Telstra's a major part of the digital world at the AFL. So I'll just watch this space, Don. Seriously, there's going to be some big issues about this.
I've said it for years that we've got to get more. And I'll just ask you that question. I think the players have got to stand on their feet. When you take into account tennis, as soon as they've finished a game of tennis, into the press box, into the media room they go. They're hot after a thing, emotion running high, and whatever comes out. And consequently, those tennis players have got to learn to control their emotion.
Did you give any stories when you were playing?
Sorry,
Yes.
Don speaking.
Thank you.
Still, and long. Hard and long he's speaking. Go ahead, Don.
Keep going, Don.
The players have got to learn, AFL players have got to learn to handle the media, and this is part of their training. And you should have access to them for that. If they make a mistake, they'll soon learn.
20 years ago, we had this discussion with Mick at the paper. The access is bad. Now, Mick, I've heard you say the access is pretty good. After a game of football, it should be open door on every person who performed that day for both clubs. I haven't covered a game for a while, probably since I become chief. They don't send you to games anymore, Mick.
Below you.
But I don't. It's really funny, Sam, because I got my job because of my writing of football. And then when you get the job, they say, well, you're not going to games anymore. But I said, I used to going to the games and writing about games and deadline and going in the press conferences. That was... I do go, not as much as I used to, but I do go.
Before we get...
There's 9 games of football on at a weekend. How many you go? I watch. I probably try and go to Friday night, and when I used to do radio on Saturday, I'd stay for that game. But then you miss too many. So I watch 7 to 8 games of football every weekend.
Before we get to the elephant in the room, Don, which would be probably the top 50 players taking over from Mick's paradigm of all those years ago.
The elephant
That's
in the room.
not the elephant in the room.
I think he's... The elephant in the room, in my opinion, is his assessment of the top 50 players from year to year, like yours was, in the competition. I think that's one of the main things he's noted for.
Well, but why does that make it an elephant in the room?
Because we haven't mentioned it yet.
We've spoken about this many a time.
He's still not over, is he? So the bloke who can't speak is speak. Can we just put him on
just
a
before
microphone?
we get on to the elephant.
Up here.
Just before we get on to the elephant.
Why have you set him up?
Yeah, why?
Just before we get into the elephant.
That's what he does, Don, doesn't he?
I've got to tell him now. This is off the record. He set you. You are a bastard.
Is this off the record?
No, this is on the record.
Listen, when you say something
Off
on the
the
record,
record?
you talk to him. Don't worry, he'll regurgitate it a week later and put you right on the spot.
You
You've got
do
to tell
that.
him now in a conversation, this is off the record.
Are you good friends with Sam, Don?
Yep.
Yeah.
What?
Yeah.
Gee, I tell you what, you've disguised it beautifully.
I'll get
But Sam's one of yours. This is Sam. Don's one of your.
No, he's
Better
not a
friends
close
in
friend of
life?
we
mine,
get
but
on to the elephant in the room, which is your 50.
I've got an elephant in the room back at you, actually.
I'm more interested in knowing the real Mark Robinson. You said that when you were handing the reins over, Mick was to you, that you had a couple of jars down at a pub and you backed him up and he scampered into the corner.
No, this blue was in the 1990s.
No, it would have been early
You
2000s.
scampered
He was
into
a
the
callow
corner.
youth from Bendigo.
That's right. He was willing to
You're
back
from
you
Bendigo.
up. But
Yeah.
he was willing.
Whereabouts? Golden Square. That's a
No,
rough.
I played at Sandhurst.
Oh, did you?
No, you weren't a bad player. I know the problem with this is me and Robbo here. You two are both 300 gamers, so therefore your cred is undeniable. But people always say the people who occupy the position Robbo's in now, that, what would you know? You never
What did
played.
I say about that, Mark?
Yeah, no, myself and Sam had that conversation last Tuesday night,
But
actually.
you played in a major country league. Which club?
Played with Sandhurst.
Sandhurst,
Sandhurst is
Queen
a
Elizabeth.
famous club.
Yeah, exactly. Queen
Yeah.
Elizabeth Oval.
It's a beautiful oval,
did you
Don.
play
It
with, Robbo?
is
Yes,
such
the
a
Cox of the
beautiful
winning
oval,
crew.
beautiful grandstand. Surface was fantastic.
Who were
It
some of
was.
who were some of your contemporaries?
Ron Best.
No, well, Bessie was a bit older than me. Bessie's probably the best player I've seen not to play AFL football. Kicked about
He had a
18
big ruckman in the 60s called Brewster who played at Waverley and went up there. He was 6'7", 6'8".
Well, the best Sandhurst players. I will.
Brian Walsh played there?
Yeah, Brian Walsh. He coached me, Brian Walsh, as well. He went down from Sandhurst to Carlton, went from Carlton back to, and coached at Sandhurst, coached at Golden Square. I mean, there was a really big contingent from Bendigo through the 60s and 70s. Well, Graham Arthur was the first.
Kevin Curran coached them
Kevin
back
Curran,
in the 50s.
Jeff Southby,
Very,
Rod
very
Ashman,
Brendan Edwards.
Brendan
Trevor
Edwards,
Keogh.
Trevor Keogh, and then afterwards Greg Williams, Nick Dalsano. The
most
Selwood
famous
family played. They were largely involved with the Sandhurst Junior Football Club. So
So is it the most famous club or most popular?
I think it would be one of the most
successful?
famous clubs. It's one of the oldest. I think we had a celebration a couple of years ago for 150th year.
So you
If you're finished, you
No, I'm
hijacked
interested.
you hijacked my question about I wanted to get to know.
Who gives a rat's ass about you?
Well, you might be interested in the question if you listened to what I was
I'm
going.
more interested in the history of Sandhurst Football Club.
Well, I have no interest
What?
in.
No.
What
I'm
about the
not.
Murray Cods? Are you interested in them?
No.
I'm interested in your cods because I'm going to kick him in a minute. Mark, I've got to have another crack at this, Donald. I'll get back to the Sandhurst Football Club in a minute, if you wish. When you were having a couple of jars with Mick when he was handing over the reins to you, you were avid drinkers in those days and smokers, I presume. You had a couple of fags, did you? Or not a couple? Not a couple.
Robbo would have had 75 that afternoon.
Right,
at the pub,
couple of Marlboros and that.
Yeah.
And when he went to back you up, you scampered into a corner and he held
Oh,
the
did
lads.
I?
He held the lads at bay.
No, he didn't.
No, I didn't.
No, he didn't. He
Don't
stayed.
tell me you stood and fought.
He stayed at the bar. There was 5 of them, or 4 of them, 5 or 4.
So who were you going to take? 4 and he'd take
No, I
one?
was just going up and I just called him a couple of names and
What did you call? Oh,
I can't.
And
A bit
so
fruity.
we-
It was a bit fruity, Don.
Yeah, but see, now you're the subject of the same assessment now, aren't you? I mean, that stuff that was directed at me then has now been...
Directed, no doubt. There's no doubt. And late at night, and they're pissed.
Hey,
And
now, before...
a month
I'm
late
not
last
finished here yet.
Sure.
Mick, late last year, I was at a pub. I was at a pub in Richmond after one of the finals with some friends. 3 blokes walked in, started having a crack at me. I thought, so I just went outside to have a dart.
About what?
So as I was walking out the door, one of them just kept on going and going. So I lost it a bit. So I did a U-turn and walked back in and said something fruity to him.
why didn't you
Don?
let him have one?
Well, that's not
No,
the
you
life
can't
that we
do
live,
that,
Don.
Oh, we don't live that life anymore.
I'll get to it in a second. And then it all fizzled out. And then the next day I woke up, one of the 3 who come in to abuse me had filmed the whole lot and posted it on social media. So what do I have to do? I have to ring 3RW, who I work with. I had to ring Fox Footy, and I had to ring the Herald Sun and say, right, this video is online. This is what happened. Nothing. There was no violence. I did call him a F-wit.
Yep.
But they caught all the abuse, so everything's fine. So people wonder why. People wonder why I don't go out as much as I used to. I used to love going out. You know that. I just love it. And you think, God, the potential of something happening is just too much. You just think, well, what's the point? What's the point?
So there
Did you ever
are,
go
you've
home?
become a
Because
prisoner.
you used to stay till 4 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah, I was a late night person, no doubt. Yeah, no, I don't get me wrong. I
John
absolutely
couldn't kick
night
you out
out.
of the party he invited you to. You were the last to leave.
Did you?
Well, can't you remember that?
Hang on, I remember everybody.
That is about as broad a description of a conversation I had with you. I said Mark Robinson came round to a function I had.
2 o'clock in the afternoon,
Yes,
and you didn't leave till 4 in the morning.
I wasn't the last.
Don, why would you make that into a controversy? That's just a statement of fact.
It was a good time.
I don't mind that you're trying to set me up, but why would you? That's not even controversial. That's a statement of fact.
That was a Good Friday.
Yeah, I said
Good Friday.
because you said, "Do you know Mark Robinson?" I said, "I've had him round to my place once."
Yeah.
That's how that conversation started, and I'm going to finish this.
And he
It's
threw
the
it back.
last-
He threw it back up at you in a negative.
That's the last thing. That's the last thing I'm going to. So, you have these conversations with Mick. Do you ever go out with one another? With do you go out with someone, man, woman, or beast?
No.
Are you? So you?
No, I'm not betrothed. Not betrothed. Myself and Mick have had 10,000 conversations in our lives. I've been to all his kids' 21st. When Mick, I was in Melbourne. Mick, I got to know all of Mick's family, all his kids. I've been to
All
his
his
house.
wives.
Been to his, we're actually, as life's sort of taken us in different directions. One's retired and one's working, a lot of hours. Life's gone a bit different directions, but Mick's been an enormous part of my life, and we've spoken about the top 50.
I'm gonna talk about the
I know
top
that probably Mick would have liked the top 50 to end because it was Mick's. This was Mick's.
Give it another
thing.
name or something because he's got his nose out of joint.
Yeah, but what newspapers do is they say that's a winner. We'll keep that brand. Mick, thanks for your
Wouldn't you
25
understand
years,
that,
30
Mick?
years contribution to our 20 years contribution, but we'll keep that brand and we'll just get someone else to write. It's like in black and white. You know, what are some of the...
Did you accept that, Mick?
Yeah, I didn't get my nose out of joint.
No, yes, you did.
Oh,
you
sorry. The invisible man's nodding his head off again. Geez, a lot of people know a lot of things about me that I'm not sure about.
And we
Did I
make
get my
them up
nose out of
anyhow.
joint?
No, not to me. Not
No.
in front of me. Never. But why would anyone get your nose out of joint? You've worked your life. Working life's come to an end. People contribute as best they possibly can, and after that, the legacy's been set.
Okay.
And then you just move on to the next phase of your life,
Now,
don't you?
the two. There's a couple of things we need to. I'm not sure how we're going for time, but before we get too far,
Right.
I want to know why you persist in reading social media when you get slagged and people call you.
Oh,
Well, hang on a sec. I haven't asked the
mate.
question yet.
it's a game.
No, but Mark.
No one in the world
what
gets slagged more than me.
No, well, I'm not talking to you.
No,
all
but
right?
it's just
And you love it. Robert, why would you go to social media when you know that your job incurs the wrath of so many whackers out there?
Worried me for the first 5-6 years. No
Still
doubt.
worries you?
No, not as much. No way. Seriously, it doesn't. I don't know what's changed in my life. I know what's changed, but moving out of the city and moving to where I'm living now made me think. These people
they're
don't
cowards.
let it get under your skin. It's but I've blocked. You'd be amazed how many people I've blocked on Twitter.
Yeah.
I never block anyone.
I block. The personal abuse do. I do. Just get rid
No,
of it.
but I know how it used to. It doesn't worry. It's sort of like a badge of honour for you. But for Robbo, it used to get you. I mean, when people would fill in for you on 360, and you
Oh, right. Yeah.
and you would read it next day, and people would be sort of saying, "Oh, he's better. Why don't we get rid of Slobbo and keep this bloke?" And you'd read them.
Slobbo?
Yeah, that was 3 or 4 years ago. But seriously, I don't have
You know, it
any
doesn't-
issue. Like even with the people I've been arguing with in footy for the last 10 years.
Me?
No, I don't argue with you.
No, we don't argue.
We
Your
don't
biggest one. That was the second part I wanted to ask you about.
Yes.
You had a fallout with Nathan Buckley.
Yep.
And Nathan Buckley, probably to most journos, is their favourite coach. Would you agree with that?
Yep.
Yeah.
I really like Nathan
Have you
Buckley.
healed it or not?
Probably not. No.
Because it started with, correct me if I'm wrong here,
Yep.
started with a front page story in the Herald Sun about hair tests on Collingwood
Yes.
players for
Yep.
drugs.
Yes.
And Buckley was aghast at that.
Yep.
And did he refuse to come on 360?
No, because he was on 360. Can you remember those testing
Yes.
nights on
Yeah.
Monday night? Yeah, they were. Talk about live TV.
So, Mark-
my God, that was live TV.
So it was really tense.
Oh, very, very.
Did you speak before the cameras came on?
One night we had a pretty decent conversation afterwards.
So there's
After the big fight on TV, we had a pretty decent go. I've got enormous respect. It's funny, I mean, how old's Bucks? 40,
Oh, he'd be 50, would he?
50? Yeah. You know what Bucks can do better than me? He can play football better than me, and he's coach of an AFL team.
So, Mark-
Doesn't make him a better human than me.
Mark,
No.
was
So
the-
when two men have a conversation, you say what you feel, and we had said what we feel.
Were you right with that story?
Yes, was the validity to the fact that they were doing hair tests on Collingwood players?
They're doing hair tests on
wasn't it.
everyone.
No, the issue was, again, correct me if I'm wrong,
Yep.
the issue was that Robbo had said there were more than half,
More than 12.
more than 12.
Up to 12, yeah.
Now, this is we're being honest here. You and I
on.
have always been. I think that was an educated guess of yours.
Yeah, but what did he say?
I don't know what he said. Please tell me.
I can't. Well, that means I've got to tell you where I got the
He
information from. I can't tell you where I got the
No,
information
Just
from.
a minute, Mick, please. There were more than 12 people who what?
Who's had
Taking drugs.
Up to
Who's
12.
Collingwood?
whose hair tests suggested that they were taking drugs. Is that right, Robert?
Yeah, they're not suggested. That's what hair testing does. It
Yeah,
shows that
yeah.
people, yeah.
From one club or right
No,
now?
Collingwood.
But there was a lot of clubs. I mean, this is why the hair testing doesn't count as
So
a strike or anything. It's
order
just
to-
for data research for the AFL.
in order to put this in context, Don, was it correct that there were tests done on Collingwood players' hair?
Yes.
Yes.
So
On all players, all players.
So what did Nathan Buckley take exception to? Because if it's a fact, I know that he doesn't want that out there, but if you're giving
Probably
out
thought it was unfair to target Collingwood players.
Is that true? Is that wasn't his complaint that you had sort of quote guessed about the number of players who had transgressed in the
I was
test?
I was told a figure.
Yeah.
I put a figure to a person. That person said, no, it's just about half of that. So I just halved my figure.
Yeah. time over again, would you have run with that in the way
Yes.
that you did?
Yes.
It's his duty.
Did Eddie weigh in at all?
bet.
Did Eddie weigh? Was he the coach of Collingwood then? Buckley?
No, it's
Buckley was coach.
Yes.
Buckley
So
was
did Eddie
coach,
weigh
Eddie.
in at all?
No, not with me personally.
So did
It's
you
a really good judge of your story when you get phone calls the next morning. And
From who?
From people involved in the story. If there's volcanic eruption, try 7:10.
Yeah.
By midday and you've got nothing.
So
there's
what did
no-
you
there's
say?
not much.
Did you say to Buckley, Bucks, I know you're angry, but the story is right?
I can't remember what I said to him in those words. We're talking 6 years ago. Then our relationship deteriorated, Mick, drastically after that when, after 6 years, Bucks' win-loss record had gone down. And I said, I think it's time for Collingwood to replace Nathan Buckley as coach. Now, the people said it was a personal thing, me going, oh, it wasn't. It was, look at these results. How long do you keep going with this man having a win-loss record after 6 years? And remember that at the end of the year, I think Jeff Walsh did a review and Bucks survived, and the next year they played in the grand final. Would have been Collingwood's greatest ever grand final too, I reckon, if they won in 2018 from where they come from.
At least you had the, because it's
Well, you're doing your
pulling,
job. You're
yeah,
stating
pulling
the
down
obvious.
pulling down probably the top club in the country, sporting club in the country. You've got some gonads to do that. I'll take my hat off to you for that. Tell me, on what basis, if we could just move, I want to get to this, on what basis do you select the top 50 players? Because I'd reckon it'd be easy to pick the top 15 or 20. After that, you may as well raffle them. Do you then go to the stats book, or what is the most controversial omission you've ever made from a top 50?
Quite
Answer any
interesting.
of those questions
I
in
was
order.
I was listening to this podcast after mine went in at the season start, and you all had a crack, and Mick actually had the same first five that I had, and you said that I'd have Jeremy Cameron at 3, and I said, so I don't worry about who says the opinion. I said, geez, can you argue that? He's a good player. He's a good player. Then I started thinking to myself, Jeremy Cameron, he had like 7 or 8 games where he didn't kick a goal last year. And I know this because I had money on him at the start of the year for the Coleman medal. So I followed him pretty closely. He's a really good man. And he would kick 5, 7, 6, 0, 0, 0. And I thought, I know he had a total of 72 or whatever it was. He was inconsistent. And can you have an inconsistent player so high in your top 50? So I sit down and, of course, you look at stats, but it's got to be gut feel on what you see. You've got to go, if we're going to do stats, the stats will print them all out in a row. Oh, here's the best stats, so they're the ones. So you've got to go.
Champion data
data.
would do it, yeah.
So if you want the stats, that's an easy one. Just get champion data to do it. So I always go on a lot of it on gut feel and the games I've seen and who has impact. And
Were you trying to be controversial this year?
No,
Let me ask you this, because we had the same top 5, but I had Dustin Martin clearly
That one.
the best player in the competition.
Yep.
And I think that was a broad view.
Yep.
Did you think that there was more commercial value in having
No.
Marcus Bonampelli there?
No.
You reckon Bonampelli's a better player than Martin?
No, you should know, Mick, at the start of the season, there's a pre-season tip, so we're
Yeah.
predicting what might happen by the end of the season.
Right, yeah.
So I was predicting by the end of the season, Marcus Bonampelli at 23, by the time he ends 24 and has another 22 games and maybe a final series in him, that Marcus Bonampelli will go to another level. I don't think Dustin Martin can go to another level. So I was actually, he's a great player, maybe the best in the comp. But at the end of the year, I was thinking, Marcus Bonampelli's taken enormous strides, and the jump from 3 years of age to $24 a player, I would imagine you're going into. He's a great player, Marcus
Yeah, no, I
Bonampelli.
love him.
So I don't even think commercially whatsoever. Did you ever think commercially?
Yeah, it crosses your mind. Yeah,
Commercially?
I think
You sell your soul, Mick.
No. I'm saying sometimes you can be predictable, and as Robbo said, there's a fine line between all these blokes, right? You could have 5. See, I'll own up to this.
Yep.
If I were doing the top 50 now, I would probably, if I was line ball with Fife and Dangerfield, I'd go for Dangerfield because he's a Victorian. Now, you'd say that affects the integrity of the exercise. I say when they're that close, you're entitled to factor in the commercial realities.
So I took Fife. I've put Fife above Dangerfield in the last 3 years because I factor in the fact that Nathan Fife has to fly every second week, and he does every much, if not better than Danger. And I don't want to name drop. I don't want to name drop. But I interviewed Danger recently about an article about the essence of football.
We've just interviewed him.
Did you today?
Yep.
He's good, isn't he?
So we've name dropped too.
So we've all name dropped. And we're talking about the essence of football, what football means to community clubs like Sandhurst and Inverloch, where
Sandhurst again.
But I talked to, I got a holiday house down there and I'm involved in a footy club. And I know what small clubs in small towns mean. And when there's no football, it's not just about we're missing AFL football. We're missing all connection with people who go with their uncles and mothers and grandmothers every week and go to the footy. That's not happening. So we're sitting in our homes and football's just not what Danger does on the weekend. And to give Danger, this is why I like Pat. So what do you miss most about football? He did not mention one thing that happened from the first siren to the umpires put their hands up. Did not talk about that one little bit. He talked about what it's like to drive there. Family, friends, going down to Anglesey on a Thursday night for roast night, watching his wife play in the women's footy in Geelong Ammos. It's this sense of community which is enormous. That's what we're all missing, in my opinion.
Can I get back to this top 50 and bring in another angle?
Yep.
Why do you always pick attacking players? Why don't you look at it defensive players or somebody that does a job that the coach or the club recognise, yet in the media they don't receive the accolade that they really should?
I had Alex Rance at 5 one year and I got absolutely
he's a goose.
I got pulverised. He doesn't pick up anyone. He doesn't pick up anyone. I had Dylan Grimes in the top 50 at the end of last year. I try and look at the defenders. There's no doubt about that. Shutdown defenders, I reckon, the most underrated and appreciated player. And the media don't really look at him. Do a story on Dane Rampy. Great player, Dane Rampy. But we'll write a story, and you look at the data. 700 people will read it. 700 people. You do a story on Dustin Martin, 38,000 people will read it before midday.
If you did a story on Dane Rampy and put in his idiosyncrasies,
and he's got a lot of them.
Eh?
And he's got a lot of them.
That's right, but then the public would
Climb
start...
goalposts?
Yeah. Yeah, then the public would start and understand and learn about Dane Rampy. You don't do it.
Yeah, we do. We try and do a lot of that. But it's up to the player if they're going to have the courage and the trust of the rider to open up.
But you can ask the questions and then you just record his reply.
Donald, you've gone off track here. Your question to Robbo was, why don't you acknowledge more the defensive players? So on that question, if Sydney, if you could say to the Swans, I'll give you these players, who do you want to be best on the ground? Franklin?
Stop.
Heaney,
Stop. Don't worry about it.
Okay. Heaney, Parker, Rampy,
Kennedy.
And say Kennedy.
Point made.
Rampy runs last.
Point made. Yeah. But from a football coach's perspective, he'd be rapt that Dan Rampy was the best player because they've given him a job on Dustin Martin every time he goes forward, and he's kept Dustin Martin to zero. John Longmire will get in his press conference and say, the most important player for us today, Dane Rampy.
Not if they didn't win. Not if no one kicked any goals.
Yeah, but if they won. So this is this thing about what is footy? What is footy? The best thing I ever did in my footy was coach. Okay, so when I coached at North Boys for 2 years under Frank Donnell. Frank played it thing.
Got any players there that you can mention, Don?
Yeah, number 7, Essendon. Frank
Go through them all.
He did. 6'3" wingman.
Yeah, St Aloysius, isn't it? The school, Mick. North Isle Boys.
But if you learn St Joseph's, it was.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
It's only when you coach, I reckon. This is going to sound no. I'm going to sound like a wanker.
No, you're
I'm going to sound like a bigger wanker.
No,
don't worry about it. That bridge has already been crossed. You think?
Because I was told exactly the same thing. You won't enjoy football until you go back to grassroots level and do it for nothing. And I did it at Sorrento.
Yeah,
And
I didn't
got
get paid.
so much enjoyment.
Did you coach Sorrento?
I coached the under-18s and partway through the season when the coach walked out, I did the seniors. But that was the most enjoyable, or one of the most enjoyable things in my football career, giving back to football.
I just learned so much about footy. I'll be honest, because when you play, you think about yourself mainly, and you think about the team, and you bring it together. But when you coach, you look at the back pocket, mate. I really need you today, because if you do this and you do that and you do that and you do that, you win, and everyone gets in a circle, and you sing and you drink that night and have fun, and then you get on a roll.
Your destiny is in their hands.
Yeah, but when it all plays out, Sam, it's great. It is such a great thing.
Yeah, exactly.
And no one's getting paid. Ammos are free. You're turning up.
Don noticed that in the 6 games he coached.
Come on, get back
Can
to
I
the
ask
real
a
world.
quick? What's the real
Now,
world?
see, you think the real world.
What's the real world?
AFL. You wank yourself because of it.
You wank yourself.
There he is here telling you about.
wanks himself.
I want to know what he.
No, I've got my
football.
elephant in the room.
What before?
What's your
what
elephant?
is it?
I want to make a couple of comments.
Go.
I said to Sam last Tuesday night, Sam, the last 4 years on the footy show, you were a bitter, twisted man, and since
Thank you, mate.
since you left the footy show and you've come onto this podcast, he's still got his strong opinions, which upsets a certain group of people, but he's a far happier man now than he was for 4 years. I can still remember the night. Remember the night he didn't talk and he carried on like
Petulant,
a bit of a sook and stuff.
Yeah.
But I can understand why he did. Tony Jones filled in, right? Tony Jones filled in for one night. Sam's been doing the footy show for 19 years. And the camera panned off Sam as
23.
Tony Jones said something to Sam. And the camera went to Tony Jones. But I looked at Sam's face, it was going off the camera. I'm telling the truth here. Tony Jones said something like, you sit there, Sam, and shut up, or something like that. And Sam, I'm guessing he said, who in the hell are you to tell me? I've been here for 23 years. You are filling in for one night. How dare you talk to me like that?
Incidentally, they're your words.
No, but am I close?
I'm not.
You're not.
No.
I'm not what?
So you're always saying to people, just tell us what happened and be open, and you're not going to be.
No, they were his words.
No,
no, what
was
happened?
I close, I said?
I was bemused by the fact that I think Ed went over to call.
Don't know where Ed went. Just tell me
I'll tell you
why
where-
you'd be amused by
why
Tony
was
Jones.
filling in. I tell you why Tony was filling in, who I'm very good friends with, and I've had words with Tony over the years, and like I've had words with everyone, but he's a good man. But
He puts you down on your own show,
that's correct.
and your
But
face was
Yes,
fury.
because he was probably playing the game and thinking it's a bit of theatre. My concern went back before that. Eddie went over to call the Jeff Horn fight, I think, over in America. For one night, he went over and hosted for Foxtel, was it? Yep. And I thought this would be a good opportunity for me to host the show. And I walked in to the meeting on Tuesday, which we have, and they said, we've got Tony Jones to fill in as the host. I said, have you? Which is nothing against Tony. I just thought maybe I could have a crack at doing it and fuck it up, and that would be half the humour of it. I could get Bill Brownless to help me and a couple of others, and we could do what we do here. We could stumble along, and the entertainment in it might be the fact that we fuck it up. So they weren't willing to take a chance on that. They wanted it nice and slick and professional, because that's what Tony is. And this was nothing personal against Tony. It was just the fact that I thought maybe I could have a crack at doing it after 23 years.
But he said something to you, and you were really upset.
Like
he sort of basically said, "Shut up, Sam."
Yes, basically, but I'd had my nose a bit out of joint days before that. Nothing to do
So
with
after
Tony.
he said that, though, the
Nothing-
nose was actually on the other side
no,
of
that's
the
fair
face.
enough, but nothing to do with Tony per se.
Okay, next elephant in the
what's
room.
Next elephant.
Whatever happened to Grant Thomas in this group?
Yeah, I
it was
can
Sam,
easily tell you
Mike,
that.
and what was it called? Sam, Mike, and
Sam, Mike and Tomo.
Sam, Mike, and Tomo. And I really like listening to you, Don. So, No, there's no
easily
but.
tell you that.
There's no but. I really enjoy your questioning and conversations, but something clearly happened with you
that's
three.
well
and
documented. I'm very happy to tell you what happened. I came in one day. We were talking about transgender sport, and I came in dressed as a woman, and which we're going to do after this. We're going to do a little video to promote it, and I had lipstick and a wig on, pretending I was a woman, and I said, I'm going to transgender and pretend I'm a woman, and I want to enter some women's golf tournaments, see if I can win them. And we put that to air, and then we had the vocal minority, the agenda seekers, jumped up and down and said it was a disgrace. I was making fun of trans people. And Grant had a business that he was running, and he said that was contrary to his business acumen. It was
Interests.
contrary to his business interests. And would I be able to, and I've had this, and this is absolutely factual, and out of deference to Grant, he said, maybe we could just not do that anymore. And I said, well, I didn't think we were going to be restricted by those sort of things. And I absolutely understood where Grant Thomas was coming from, because that's his business. That's his core business. This was just as we do it here now. We do it because we enjoy it. And we thought, so I don't get him into any more trouble, I think it's best if we discontinued doing it, because I don't want to put his livelihood and his empire in jeopardy, which I thought I might. Now, that's...
So you took that upon yourself to pull the pin there?
Grant and I discussed it. And we came to not agreement. We came to a end discussion that we thought it would be better if I didn't have to edit myself or be careful what I said, because that's not how it started. And in deference to his business interests, I think it would be better if I didn't do it.
What's your version, Mick?
I think it was fragmenting. I think that's a simplistic way of explaining
It
what
might have been
happened.
fragmenting.
I wasn't going to continue. And,
no, because you had a different...
I think you are using the commercial element to
Not
cover a
at
few
all.
misgivings that you had.
Not
What do you think the misgivings are, Mick?
It lost the appeal of things like this to me. Having robust discussions with blokes you like, right? When that disappears, I'm not interested anymore. We're not making any money out of this.
Comes across really badly if three people are together and two of them aren't getting on.
But
Because if it's not fun here, I tell you what, it certainly doesn't sound
Mick,
fun
please don't
when you
shoot
listen
that
to
home
it.
to me about my association with Grant Thomas.
No, I think
my association with Grant Thomas and us not continuing was purely on a commercial basis in his interests. You found it grating with him, but don't say that about me, please, because I'm happy to say that if that's right. But I
think the commercial issue suited you at the time.
What do you think? What the fact that I used that as an excuse? No, it did not. Nothing of the sort. I've told you this many times. I'm happy to have anyone discuss anything at any time. It worries me not at all. So you had a different attitude with Grant because you thought he put you down.
That's true. And
that's right.
And you know how insensitive I am.
I know how
Precious
sensitive
is the word.
Yes. So good questions, Mark.
What other elephants? This is good.
Got any more elephants?
I've
I've got an elephant in the room.
No, hang on.
Well, I can have an elephant too.
No, I'm waiting on his.
While you ponder that, this is not necessarily an elephant. Your relationship with Gerard Whateley.
Yes.
Intriguing it is. I mean, because I'm a Gerard Whateley fan, right? And I'm a fan of Mark Robinson. But he's an odd combination, which probably means that's why it works. But how do you get on with him? What's your social interaction?
No, there's no social interaction whatsoever. We have a strictly working relationship. We send each other a couple of texts over summer. How are you? Christmas Day. I hope the kids and your wife are going well. And he sends me a couple of texts. The person who put it together, and we know who it is, he's sitting in the room over there 30 metres away because of social distancing, Rod Law put together myself and Gerard. He nearly put myself, Gerard and Damien Barrett together. Could you imagine that? God almighty.
You don't get on with Barrett, do
No.
you?
And
Why don't you get on with
No,
Barrett?
we'll answer the Jared Waitley question.
All
first.
right. Well, Mick
And,
said that he didn't like the histrionics that you carried on with Jared.
I had a go at
Waitley.
him about that.
Yes. Well, I'm asking you why.
Hang on, we've got to deal with this. Yeah, we've got a lot of questions coming here. Myself and Jared get on exceptionally well. Exceptionally well. He's different to me. He's got different lifestyles. He's got different beliefs. People abuse Jared, and I feel like I've got.
Do they abuse Jared?
Yeah.
On what basis?
Oh, just what does the world abuse everyone on everything and anything? No, we've got a really good relationship, and he's probably my not strangest. He's a friend who's probably most opposite to who I am, but we've been together now for our 10th year on AFL 360. I think, Rod, our 10th year together, went from one show a week to 4 shows a week. And you know what? You can only survive on one thing. I've got respect for what he does, and he's got respect for what I do, and we do something different. And you know what? When we see each other, we're genuinely happy to see each other every night. It's like,
So
what are we going to do?
He gets in there at 3 p.m. to prepare.
No, that's a lie.
And you get in there at 7:29.
I go straight from the newsroom, which you sat in for 20 years. I go straight from the newsroom, depending on whether I'm writing a late story or not. The latest I've ever got there for the 7:30 show was 7:28 and 40 seconds. And I walked in the door, sat down, put the microphone on.
And
one
that is
dab,
the way to do it.
And then, hi, how are you? Jared goes, here we are. And I say,
No
g'day.
other way to do it, Mick.
Jared reads the rundown. I don't read the rundown. I look at it, see what the next topic is.
Talking about that, the rundown. You didn't read the rundown one night when Gillum McLaughlin was on and asked him a question that apparently there'd been an agreement wouldn't be asked. Is that true?
Yeah, wasn't really aware of that. Yeah, that's
And
it's
Gillum
okay.
cracked
What
it.
was it?
Cracked it.
Yeah.
No, absolutely, we're not going there. Sam.
Oh, we're not?
No.
But you asked it on air.
Yes,
But we're not going on air here with it.
No.
That's extraordinary, Mark.
Go and find it on YouTube.
Okay.
I'm not talking about it. I'm not talking about it today. No, mate, I like this podcast, but I'm not going to dig up. I'm not going to dig up dead bodies.
Oh, well, everyone's saying don't go on with it. Even the man whose
the
voice we
invisible
can't
man.
hear. Don, I'm intrigued. Could we?
I want to know what other elephants. This is intriguing. I'm sitting back enjoying this. Any other elephants
Well,
in the room?
That's a big
Mark?
elephant.
You had a cheap shot at him saying about the histrionics.
Well, it wasn't a cheap shot.
Well, what's
Yeah,
wrong with
no
him
one-
being ebullient?
I was shitty with that. I told him.
No one has been more supportive of this bloke than me.
Don't
right?
suck.
No, that's not a suck. No one has been. I support when Peter Blunden rang me about the chief football writer's job. I said he was the only bloke that should get it.
I heard Damien Barrett was probably going to get it before him.
Well, he wasn't going to get my vote. So I have been supportive of this bloke, and he knows that from 1993.
We've been
Yeah.
friends since about
Pussycat.
1995.
And I was asked
you know?
about the only thing I was asked about his Robbo, and I said the only thing that grates on me was the histrionics.
No. You said the only thing I dislike about him, and I took offence.
Dislike.
Not offence. I didn't like the word dislike.
Yeah.
I said to you,
It's behavioural, not you.
Yeah, but I said, "What, you dislike me?"
No, I didn't say. You know that's not true.
I know. That's why I had a
No,
crack
but
at
you
you.
know you take
Not a crack. That's why I brought it up with
That's
you.
a quantum leap to say if some part of your behaviour that might irritate me doesn't mean I don't like you.
Yeah.
As the French say,
But
always,
but the thing about it, if we weren't such great friends, we wouldn't have even had the conversation. And I mean that. And it's funny, people say to me, why, histrionics, funny word, histrionics, isn't it? Yeah, anyway, people say, why do you get all
Uptight.
passionate and stuff? And when I talk about footy on the show, I go back to the moment when I was watching it and how I was feeling at the time and how angry I was or how happy I was when I saw this happen or how angry I was when I saw Don Scott do something, I think. And when I retell it, I sometimes allow the emotion of the time to take control, and I can't do anything. I don't know where it come from. You've known me.
Rod Law is totally at opposite with me. He's the bloke who hired you.
At odds.
He loves that, yes. He loves the fact that you do that. It's just a personal observation. It's not a thing that people don't like someone.
as
Geez,
the,
how precious can you be?
as the French say, Donald, oars to combat means the girls are fighting again. Now, tell
You
me
have
this.
to have a cheap shot, don't you?
Yeah, you do.
You have to have a cheap shot.
yeah.
That's not a cheap shot. There's just a couple of old tarts having a... Now, so
Yes.
Damien Barrett, you're not happy with him for what reason?
Oh no, it's just we're just
It's
different
just a
kind.
what?
We're just different kind of people. I'm not coming onto the podcast and just wag
Wagging
everyone, but
people.
I'll pass comment on most people. Yeah, we don't get on well. Last year at the media awards, I was lucky enough to win an award, and I said, you know what? It's about time we lay down the guns. How about we lay down the guns? And Mark Fine, I don't know if people out there know Mark Fine. He used to be the SEN night presenter. It was a bit fruity at times. Finally come up to me downstairs and said, that's a great thing to do, to lay down your guns. He
With
said,
Barrett?
He said, just don't lay them too far away. I thought it was a great line. And the season starts, for some unknown reason, Damien Barrett dislikes the Herald Sun, and he continues to have a crack at the Herald Sun, and people at the Herald Sun say to themselves, this is pathetic.
Where does he have a crack?
On a
Just
podcast.
near his order.
No, hang on.
On his podcast.
Okay.
Just
I've never listened to his podcast.
I don't even know he does it.
Never listened to it. But people tell me.
He does it with Hutchie. It's called the sounding board.
Never.
How have your relations with Hutchie?
Yeah, so there's another man.
Man,
How's
Hutchie
Hutchie going?
had some really good times and bad times, solid times. We started working together, God, mid-90s, early 90s, late 90s, on a podcast, on a video out at Essendon. We'd do it every week. I knew Craig really well, you know, but then things happened and
What happened?
things just happened.
This is going about Lewis Martin.
It all starts because
Did you
they-
answer any of these questions? we're
Oh,
asking you?
bullshit.
He's a better interviewer than Lewis
Oh,
Martin.
mate, it's been enthralling. We're
Like
loving
Lewis
it.
Martin on a break.
We're loving the
The,
elephants. Yeah.
I just don't
Marcel
like the fact
Marceau.
that people sit out there and have free shots at the Herald Sun, and it really shits me.
No, it's dreadful, isn't it?
I know you're being a smart ass again, but if you don't stand up for your game, your team,
Yep.
what do? Just let everyone walk all
But-
over
but
you?
what-
So
right.
when you stand back up against them and say, don't be an arsehole, and people have cheap shots, and then you think, fuck it.
Well done.
But
Good word.
was there a moment where you fell out with Barrett?
No, I can't recall.
Really? So it's all over his criticism, his negative attitude.
I
to the Herald
know. We
Sun.
weren't talking at the Herald Sun.
No.
We weren't talking at the
I might have been a first-hand witness to that.
What was he in line, Mark?
Oh, we're in the office together and we just didn't talk.
I worked with when Barrett was it.
Was he in line, Mark, to be the chief football
I
writer?
wouldn't know.
No, you wouldn't know.
No, I seriously, I wouldn't know.
No, fair enough.
You know,
Yeah.
I talked to you before about politics in this world and
What's that?
Politics and
Yes.
one thing I've learned since took over from Mick is that in this society that we all live in, that I live in and Mick lived in, there is a whole bunch of people floating above everyone else who make decisions affecting every single person
Yep.
below them. For example, I can write a story, about Eddie Maguire, and Eddie Maguire can go straight over my head and talk to the chief executive of News Corp if he wants.
Yep.
And I can do something about Jeff Kennett, and Jeff Kennett can go and talk to whatever. You know, there's this whole level of
They
people.
work in a dirty way.
No, not in a dirty way. They're like the puppeteers.
The clique.
They just sit above Melbourne society, and they just.
That's a good point.
And they just, and they're all involved. AFL heavyweights are involved. You know, I mean, how ridiculous that when this pandemic started, the AFL said, righto, let's get some presidents on. I know, let's get the most outspoken on so they don't throw rocks at us. Eddie Maguire, Jeff Kennett, Peter Gordon, but we've got to get someone from interstate. But come on. Andrew Pridham, he's a really intelligent person. Let's get Andrew Pridham on. He's really intelligent, Andrew. So Eddie and Jeff go into the tent. Then they start throwing rocks from inside the tent, where for the last 15 years they've been throwing rocks at the tent. This world is just stuffed. I mean, not stuffed. It's a great world, but there's
Conflicted.
so many conflicts. Yeah, there's so many conflicts.
It's a game they
You asked me
play.
before about Kane Corns and the media landscape. Every media company's conflicted as well. It's just a revolving world of politics.
Well, you're
And when footy's on, there's no politics. It's the game.
Yes.
Let's just go and watch the game. And for 8 weeks, we've had politics.
Yeah, it gets
From everyone talking about Trump, the pandemic, Dan Andrews, ScoMo, golf, schools opening, isolation. Hubs, everything. It's doing my head in. It's done my head in.
Well,
so I don't try and get upset about anything anymore when it comes to this.
So what are you going to do to stave your head caving in?
I don't really worry about. I don't worry about things that used to annoy me.
Is there any
can't control?
So I think we got somewhere today. Don,
well, I had more questions to ask.
when you've asked far too many today in both
sat here
forums.
captivated.
No, you've given us the shits, Don. You've asked so many fucking questions that I'm almost questioned out.
You should start your
Mark
own podcast.
Robinson.
What?
You should start your own podcast,
Why?
Don.
No one would listen.
You're
I'd
selling
listen.
yourself short. You're selling
There you
yourself
go.
Kiss
short.
in my pocket.
I'm not. I like it when you say stuff like, some guy had to go at Sam for spelling sycophant wrong. Mike Carlton, and you said, "Who is this bloke?
Yeah, well,
You spelt the word wrong."
I was going to ask you about a bloke called Pickering. Who the bloody hell's Pickering? You talk these names. I don't
Larry.
know that.
Larry.
Larry, he's a
That's his
cartoonist.
brother Liam, who used to play for your footy club.
Larry did?
Liam, you dick. Liam Pickering.
Liam Pickering is a cartoonist, is he?
Liam Pickering, come on. Liam Pickering is on radio with Hutchie on Saturday mornings, and he smacks Robbo. He won't even
does he?
He won't even give Robbo his first name, will he?
Why does he smack you?
Because you're just Robinson. That's all.
Oh, is it?
Yeah.
Mrs.?
I get caught a lot of things, don't I, girls? That. No, he's just one of those people I was referring to before. You can keep going through life and fight with people, or actually you stop fighting with people and you realise they don't care. They're irrelevant people in your life. And you're a much happier person. I'm a much happier person than I was 4 years ago.
Well, now, Mrs. Robinson. You
Great
like that?
song, isn't it?
It is. Do you know who
Simon
sang
and
it?
Garfunkel.
Yes.
Did they?
What?
Was it about the graduate, wasn't it?
It was in the
Yeah.
graduate.
Yeah,
the
yeah,
film
yeah.
The
Yes, to you,
Graduate.
Mrs. Robinson.
Driving
the
to
Rain Man. Who was that?
Dustin Hoffman. And who played the lead lady?
Oh,
Anne Bancroft.
Anne Bancroft.
Well done,
Oh,
She wasn't
Not
bad.
just
Carried a
the pretty
torch.
face.
You carried a torch for her, did you?
It's not Mr. and Mr. Robinson. I talk about Mr. and Mr. Joyce.
Oh,
How will the AFL go, cap in hand, going to Qantas to ask them to fly them around the country, seeing as Virgin are out of business? It'd be interesting to see if they get a discount. Mr. and Mr. Joyce will have to work over the kitchen stove.
I don't know why, but I laugh at that every
Now,
time you do that.
Mark,
Yes, Samuel.
thank you very much for coming in. We got most of the things from you that we asked you, which was a welcome change from last week when we had Huey Lewis in the news, or whatever his name is.
Jerry Lewis and Dean Martin.
He's a good man, Lewis.
No, he is a very good man.
nice
So
man.
thanks for coming in and being part of this, Mark Robinson.
Thank you.
Good on you, Robbo.
Thank you, Michael. See you, Don.
Yeah.